always important to represent your team. And here in the Cover Killer Nation, we have a lot of very talented musicians that are either part of the nation, either that or are associated with the nation through some communication that has occurred throughout the years, either that or just some requests to review some pretty killer material. And one such is actually what we're going to talk about today, which is Enfold Darkness with their brand new album, ADVERSARY, OMNIPOTENT. And those of you who are very in tune to this genre of heavy metal, which is sort of like a death/black metal hybrid that really leans on a lot of technical persuasion, you know the name. You understand that they had a debut album that came out that sort of shook the foundation a little bit, but a lot of people wondered what these guys were truly capable of. And ADVERSARY OMNIPOTENT may actually be the album that's going to display this. And the reason for this is actually quite simple. This is over an hour's worth of music, and it comes in 13 different parts, or 3 different acts, with a prelude as well as an interlude to get you sort of through everything. So really a total of 5 parts whenever you include those sections. This is a concept album. I will leave the concept up for your imagination. You have to listen to this for yourself in order to really gain that knowledge. And you really should. I'm going to go ahead and spoil this immediately, principally because if you enjoy the metal styles that I just described to you, then Enfold Darkness will probably have something that you enjoy. Now, this is an album that, since it is a concept release, is able to do 2 things exceptionally well. For one, its pacing is very remarkably done. And what I mean by this is principally how the first part, and really a portion of the second act directly after the interlude, really sticks to sort of development and trying to get the overall setting and the overall idea, you know, some of those themes that are going to run throughout the concept of this disc really established, and doing so while also really establishing themselves within their own sound. You hear the sounds of swirling guitars that are able to really just craft eloquent melody that is also crushing to your ears. The vocals are just this absolutely destructive force that steamroll you, and it's very true right out of the gate with tracks such as Layers of the Ascended Matters, either that or Liberator of Mages. It definitely has a little bit of a fantasy element to it, and based off of that, the story definitely has a lot of reading that's concerned. In fact, if you look in this book, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, you would imagine there would be photos of the band members, either that or perhaps thank yous and other sort of promotional things that you see in a traditional album book, but no, instead it's 6 pages full of story, and it's story that is in very small text, meaning that they put a lot of thought and effort into what this album is able to craft and create. Greg Vance just does an absolutely splendid job behind the skins, and really the fretless bass is something to really behold. But again, the story is really twisted and turned throughout this crafted, very aggressive technical metal that has a lot of those death and black thrash elements to it. At some points at times, I hear some things that are reminiscent to the Emperor days, especially whenever you get to albums such as Prometheus. It has that sort of technical identity to it that certainly feels like it has a grand amount of inspiration that comes from discs such as that one, or those that followed that sort of helped to develop, craft, and found the tech death landscape. So it is certainly one that pays particular homage to its predecessors, perhaps without even really attempting to do so, while also sticking its own identity on this work. The second thing that this band does exceptionally well is that whenever the going gets tough, the tough gets longer. They expand their composition on the second half of this disc. This is where the ball not only gets rolling, it starts to really barrel down the hill at a very, very dangerous speed. This is something that if it plows into a car or perhaps a small child, is going to leave death in its wake. These are tracks that now are starting to push the 6 to 7 minute mark, with the finale of this album, Vanish into Damnation, eclipsing the 8-minute mark. And none of this time feels as though it is wasted. It is still something where the musicianship and the craftsmanship on these songs is done so with enough of a real sense of purpose, not to mention a sense of where the story needs to go and how it needs to get there, that it develops very nicely and presents itself with a lot of precision. And I like the fact that this is a disc that, despite its long runtime, is very, very hard to put down. And that only boosts its accessibility, but also boosts its replayability. And replayability is a big game whenever you have a disc that really does demand something from the listener, such as Adversary Omnipotent really does. There is a lot of challenges that are presented, but there are challenges, or should I say, they are challenges that the listener wants to take and really wants to engage in. You hear how these swirling solos are able to bridge together very large portions of story. And as you read along with the music, you almost feel transported into this world. And that's something that is always the mark of a great album. Enfold Darkness came back with a sophomore effort that was no slump whatsoever. This is an addicting album that may seem a little bit like Tech Death 101 at times, but you know what? That's actually okay, considering Tech Death has become such a sort of well-known and well-experimented with genre. It's nice to see a band kind of go back to some rudimentary basics, but add a really big spin to it with the story and just the overall very, a very fine attention to detail that's really placed on this album. It's one that, even in a style of music that might seem like it has nowhere else to go, they find a new place to go and give it a strong force to it. If you think that the Faceless did some great work with Omnivium, go the Omnipotent route with Enfold Darkness, and you'll note that these guys are already becoming seasoned veterans, such as that band, and perhaps without the myriad of chaos that swirls around the Faceless, not only now, but has been for a number of years. This is a disc that really plays itself very well whenever you go to sit down. Don't listen to this in the car, especially if you're low on gas. You'll find yourself running that gas tank dry because you want to listen to the next song, or perhaps finish the next act, or just finish the album in general. It has that generalized ability to just really, suck you in, and you kind of become trapped. Almost as though you yourself now have to take this adventure in order to escape the chasms of your mind that this album has taken over. This is a 27 out of 30. Brilliant work by these guys. I think this is essential listening, and it's essential listening because of its technical craftsmanship and the fantastic construction of these songs. This is very well done. You know, whenever you see some concept albums, they feel rushed to death, either that or have a really hokey concept to it. This is one that's really imbibed a lot in fantasy and the occult, and it just brings so much to the table. And even whenever you look at the liner notes, you realize that there are hails, which I'm assuming are, thanks going out to names like Alicia Crowley, either that or Mark Twain. So there's a lot of different sources that are coming in to really inspire this, which is only a huge upside for Enfold Darkness in the future, meaning that they're going to draw from multiple sources in order to craft top-notch material. That being said, I want to know what you guys think about Adversary Omnipotent by Enfold Darkness. Let me know in the comments below. You always have to rep your team. You always have to rep
for life.